So I want to go into the substance of our talk today, where we're talking about setting your mind for success. You see, we emphasized last time when we started this conversation about the centrality of the mind. You will never be successful until you manage to connect your minds and until you manage to align your mind so that you begin to think in a particular manner. So I'm so excited to be starting this. Oh, beautiful. I'm seeing you guys from Nigeria. You guys are overwhelming. Thank you so much. So last time I started the conversation on mindset. Your life is only going to change until you change your mindset. So you're not going to be able to change the direction of your life until you change the direction of your thoughts. So July for me is a very hard month as well. I lost my father around about this time on 27 July in 1998. So this was about 22 years since my father died. I quickly had to grow up to become a father. And I thank God so much. Several people in my family, God has raised them. But one of the things that had really helped me during this period was to work on my transformation of the mindset, how I thought and how I think, believing that God can turn around the life of this young orphan. And right now today, I'm here to extend a similar message that you can turn around your life. You can turn around the direction of your life. That's why I want us today to encourage each other. So last week, I opened with a story of the elephants. Why is it you find an elephant, powerful creature as it is? Why is it you find an elephant with just a tiny rope, chain, yet it has got so much power and it can actually break away? But you find there is a simple explanation that when an elephant is growing, they simply put a rope, and because it's not yet powerful at that stage, what happens is it tries to break away, and when it tries to break away, it fails. So what happens now is it grows with that same mindset that we tried this and it failed. And as it grows with that same mindset that we tried this and we failed, one of the things that we find is that it gives up, and it grows with the mindset that I tried this and I failed. So what you find is it gets to a point where it gets to give up. It gives up. And once it gives up, that's the end. So one thing that we find now is it grows to an extent that it's got so much power, but it's tied to a rope. What's happening? Because an elephant doesn't forget. It grows up with the limitations, with the mindset of limitations, and it grows to think that it can't. So what in essence those guys do is they simply work on the programming of the elephant. And this is the reason why I want you to challenge you. Don't be a victim of your past. Don't be a victim of the failures of the past. And I want to do in this session is to help you reprogram your mindset. Silas is asking, can I ask questions? Sure, you can actually come through and ask questions. So, why is it important for us to program our mindset? Because what Solomon says, last time we made the point, and this is in Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23. And if you're reading the New Living Translation, I want you to read it. This is what it says: guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. I need to recapture this. Guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. So why is it this conversation is very important on why we need to guard our mind? Because our mind controls the direction of our lives. So if you want our lives to go in a particular direction, we need to guard our minds. And last time, if you were listening, I made the point that when the Bible is talking about the mind, it's not talking about the physical mind, the physical heart. So when it's talking about the heart, the Bible is simply referring to the human mind. So what the Bible is saying is guard your mind above all else, for it determines and it directs the course of your life. Meaning your success, your failure is connected to how you think. Your success and your failure is connected to what you think and how you think. This is the reason why this conversation is particularly very important, why we need to guard our minds. Why? Because it determines the course of your life. So I want to take you further to this conversation. And what I want to do today, I want to take you to the story you find in Numbers chapter 13, verse 31. Numbers chapter 13, verse 31. And many of you guys, I think you know the story. So God has managed to take the Israelites out of Egypt. Now is taking them en route, the wilderness, to the promised land. And what does God do? He assigns people through Moses. Guys, I want you to go into the promised land. I want you to go and inspect and see what things look like. And you find a very interesting story there. This is what the Bible says. When the 12 spies were sent out, we even saw the giants there, the descendants of Anak. Next to them, and this is very interesting, next to them, we felt like grasshoppers. Next to them, we felt like grasshoppers. And that's what they thought too. So you see, one thing that you find here is nobody told anybody that you're a grasshopper. But these guys, they say we felt like grasshoppers, which is the reason why it's very important to work on our default settings. And I'm going to quickly take you through the things that I think are fundamental in terms of programming and affecting your mindset. So you find 12 spies going to the promised land, and they come up with a report that we were like grasshoppers. And the question is, who said you are a grasshopper? There's a quote that I like, and it very much emphasizes the importance and priority of attitude and why we need to emphasize on this. Because, you see, a number of times many people are so used to complaining, and we forget that complaints are not going to change anything, but the transformation of our mindset is going to bring about the transformation in our lives. That's why we need to go back to this. But you see, many times, many people are running with a grasshopper mindset. We're belittling ourselves. We're thinking that we're grasshoppers. We're thinking that there are people who are better than us. Rather than comparing ourselves with other people, I rather think you might need to focus on a conversation where you begin and constantly need to encourage yourself. And once you start doing that, you begin to see your life shift. And the quote I want you to understand, this is what it says: an army of sheep led by a lion will always defeat an army of lions led by a sheep. An army of sheep led by a lion will always defeat an army of lions led by a sheep. But why is it an animal like a sheep can successfully lead animals like lions? What is simply pointing is to the aspect of how we think. You see, this conversation is particularly critical in Zimbabwe. And many of you guys, I know you'll be listening from also in Zimbabwe, where things are pretty much difficult from the economic front. But what I want to encourage you is to stay with the right frame of mind and realizing that the same environment that many people are closing shop, that's the very same environment with the right mindset that you can actually start your business and stop doing things with yourself. So I want us to shift how we think. There's a story I want to give you, which best also illustrates this point. So during the Second World War, you know Coca-Cola, those guys who like that drink. Coca-Cola had managed to penetrate into Germany. And one of the things that you find was they now had difficulties in sending the imports because of the Second World War, where much of the infrastructure had been destroyed during that process. So what do? They call back to America, say, guys, we're really struggling getting your inputs. What should we do? And word was sent from America, say, guys, I want you to choose whatever that you can get. Come up with a drink. And in Germany then, they were able to find lots and lots of apples. And they were able to find something called whey, which is that watery substance you get from milk. So what did you find? People sit down with themselves during the height of the Second World War, and they start working around what they had. And guess what? They came up with a drink. And what do they say? Guys, we need to come up with the name of a brand of this particular drink. But we want something that's so exciting. And in a board meeting, one of the leaders says, I want you to exercise your fantasia. So fantasia, that's the German word for imagination. So let your fantasia run wild. And one day, that very same meeting, somebody says, I think the name of the product is called Fanta. That became the birth of Fanta in the 1940s, in the height of the Second World War. But why is it some people were able to create Fanta during a war? It's because people stopped focusing on the problem. They started focusing on the solutions. And by so doing, they were able to come up with a brand, a new product, which many of us right now are still even enjoying. Which means we need to control how we think. That's why Solomon said, when I say that, guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. Guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. Guys, I want to be honest with you. The course of your life should not be determined by the economy. The course of your life should not even be determined by the politics. Of course, these things are quite critical, but I want you to be able to guard something that's within your control, which is your mind. And this is the reason where you find some people going to the promised land, they've seen all the things that God has been doing for them, yet they felt like grasshoppers. Guard your minds. So the word mindset, I explained last time in the first broadcast, that there are two words that give us the word mindset. The first word is mind. The next word is settle, meaning what you allow your mind to think about constantly, eventually begins to build what you call a mindset. And once you build a mindset, you see, it gives birth to a way of doing things, a way of behavior, belief systems. So, I want you to shift your focus and begin to focus on the things that add value to you. Right now, your mind is focusing on particular areas. This is the reason why you're getting the results that you're getting. So if you want your life to shift where you're focusing. You see, one of the things that I need to help many people in Zimbabwe, and several people are listening to me from all of us. You see, if you wait for things to be better, your life is never going to be better. If you wait for things to improve without improving yourself, your life is never going to improve. You see, a number of times, many people become so hopelessly hopeless. Why? Because we've surrendered our lives somewhere, because we think there's somebody who's going to come and shift our lives. But come on, I've actually done a show called No One Is Coming, which is the reason why I want you to take responsibility and I want you to take effective charge of your life, realizing that nobody is going to come and shift the trajectory of your life. Look at your life right now. Are you happy with the way your life is? So if you're not happy with the way your life is, I've already answered for you. The answer is you need to shift your thinking. Shift it. Why? Because your life goes where your mind is going. So the moment you begin to shift and improve your thinking and your thoughts, your life becomes better. That's why I don't want you to get a point where you begin to be so helpless. So I want to take you through things that I think affects how you think, that contributes to mindset. I hope you're ready for this. What affects or shapes your thinking? The first thing that I think affects our thinking is actually our past. Our past environment. How are we raised? You see, one of the things that you find is many of us were coming from backgrounds where you couldn't express freely your dreams, your ambitions. The moment you said, I want to do this, people will be quick to shoot you down. And you see, one of the things that you find is, as in the example of that elephant, is it tried when it was growing up to break away from the chain. But little did it know that it didn't have strength at that time. So it became captive of the past. And last time those who were watching, I shared the story of this gentleman called Thomas Edison. Quickly, allow me to do that again for the guys who missed this. So I'm emphasizing about the environment in the past year. So this boy comes from school with a piece of paper. He says, Mama, my teacher said I must give you, not anybody else, you. The mother opens the piece of paper, starts reading the piece of paper, and as she was reading, she was crying. So the little boy was so concerned. Why is Mama crying? Mama says, my son, it's what's written on this piece of paper. And he asks Mama, what's there? The mother reads, your son is a genius. This school does not have enough good teachers to teach him. Please, teach him yourself. So what does the mother do? She withdraws the child from school, homeschools the child. The child grows to become a very respected inventor by the name of Thomas Edison. And those guys who have read a bit is the guy behind the electric bulb. Several other inventions, 1,000 patents to his credit. The mother dies. He goes through his mother's stuff, and guess what he sees? The very same piece of paper. He opens it, and this was the message. Your son is mentally ill. We won't let him come to school. Please, teach him yourself. But I want you to imagine one thing. The mother had an opportunity to actually treat and raise the child as a mentally ill person. But instead of raising a mentally ill person, the mother read, as you've read in the first part, that your son is your genius. Meaning you need to learn to see a genius in yourself. You need to learn to see a genius where nobody else is seeing a genius. See a genius. And this is what the mother does. She saw a genius, and instead of treating the child as a mentally ill child, the mother started treating the child as a genius. And guess what? Thomas Edison rose to become a respected inventor. And this very same guy who says, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. That's a gentleman. This is a guy after 10,000 attempts at the electric bulb. Many people say it is a failure. It says, guys, you don't understand. I didn't fail 10,000 times. 10,000 times I successfully eliminated formulas that did not work. What's the secret? Somebody was able to raise a genius. Somebody was able to make a commitment to see a genius where the world was seeing a mentally ill person. But what the mother was doing in essence was to contribute towards a mindset. This is the reason if you're a mother, never condemn your own child. Never. No matter how angry you are, never condemn your own child. Why? Because words have got power. How we're raised is very important. But I don't know how you're raised, but I don't want you to end up a victim of how you're raised. So what does Thomas Edison do? In his journal, he writes about his mother, that Thomas Edison was an adult child that by a hero of a mother became a genius of the century. But what was the secret? The mother was focused on raising a genius rather than raising a mentally ill person. So I want you to observe this. First thing, our backgrounds are critical. You see, a number of us, we were coming from past where many of us have not been able to see people in our lives doing anything significant. Right now, many people, what you're actually doing, are the first one. You're the first one to be in business. You're the first one to get married. You're the first one to probably get married. You're the first one to say, I'm not going to do an 8 to 5 job. I'm going to start my own business. Be careful of dreamers who also expose themselves to people who are cruel and not kind to dreamers. So I want you to be able to guard jealously that dream, realizing that your past is not you. Your past doesn't define you. It simply guides you. Guard jealously your future. So, the background is very important. But this is the good news. The good part is you can challenge your background. You can't change it, but you can challenge it. You can say, enough is enough. I'm not going to settle for this. I'm going to do something different, which is pretty much my story. There's no lawyer in my family. I'm the first one. The rest of my family now, several of them have decided, I'm going to be a lawyer. So the guy who comes after me is studying law. The last one is studying law. Why? I challenge my background. You don't have to surrender your future to simply saying, because so and so failed, I'm not going to do it. No. The reason why they failed is because they failed. But this is your opportunity to shine. This is your opportunity to step out. That's why don't allow your past to interfere. So the second thing that affects our thinking is the quality of our conversations. What are we talking about? So you can ask questions. People are saying, can you ask us? Sure, you can actually. What are you talking about? The conversations. You see, if you really want your life to shift, one of the things that I want you to start focusing on is the type of conversations that you're engaging in. You see, you'll never be able to change your life, shift your life, as long as you're focusing on the wrong conversations. You see, a number of times, many of us were spending a lot of time talking to discouragers, talking to people who are negatively negative. We spend a lot of time with people who don't believe in what we believe. So I want to encourage you to work on the quality of conversation. One of my favorite stories is that of the 4 lepers. They said to each other, why are we sitting here until we die? They began to engage in a conversation that gave birth to the transformation that they needed. Why are we sitting here until we die? So they started to nurture a conversation, and that conversation gave birth to a decision to say, guys, let's weigh our option, let's move. If we're going to be killed, then we're going to be killed. But if we do nothing, we're going to die. Conversations. And I want to emphasize the importance of 2 types of conversations. The first one is the internal conversations. What you tell yourself. Very important. You see, a number of us were discouraging ourselves. That's what we're doing. We discourage ourselves. That's why those guys who went to the promised land, they say we were like grasshoppers. No one said they were grasshoppers. They simply said we are and we were like grasshoppers. And these guys probably thought as much that we're also grasshoppers. Then the next type of conversation that can actually affect you is the external conversations. What are you talking about? And who are you talking to? You see, one of the things that I want you to do in this digital era is be selective as to who you give your time. So right now I'm doing a live, and thank you so much guys for actually spending your time to be watching this. There's so much content that's going on online. Several content, so much content which doesn't add value. But I want you to deliberately focus on the content that improves you. So I'm not an entertainer, I'm here to help you. I'm not. I'm here to help you. And what am I here to do? I want to encourage you to begin to have better conversations. I want to encourage you to begin to start talking things in a better way. So who are you talking to? And what are you talking about? And this brings about fundamental points on the quality and the types of conversations. I want to give you a story, and it's called the famous math problem. The famous math problem is very interesting. One of the things that we find is many people actually fail math, and because I spend time with the wrong people as well, I actually failed math. I've already used mathematics at all level. I've already seen English at all level, C English A level, third class English communication skills. That's me. I'm speaking English right now. I think it's correct English. Why? Because I decided to challenge a way of thinking. So, the famous math problem, this is how it goes. So, these students, they are in a classroom, but there was one student who was so outstanding, it's always coming late, predictably late in class every time. So what does he do? On this day, consistent with this behavior. By the way, this is a true story of a gentleman called George Danzig. So he comes late, sees two math problems. What does he do? He simply copies them, goes to his room, retires, and what does he do? He starts working on them. So he does the first problem, he's done. Then the next one, he says, no, I think it needs a bit of time. So he actually dedicated a bit of time into that problem. So what does he do? In just about 3 days, he was able to solve the problem. So what does he do? He hands the paper to the professor. But that very same night, the professor calls him, George, do you know what you've just done? So the guy was actually worried. Why? Because number one, he didn't know whether what he had written was correct. Secondly, he had submitted his assignments late. So he wasn't very sure about what he had actually done. The professor says, George, you just solved the famous math problem, which couldn't be solved in the time of Albert Einstein. He just solved that problem in 3 days. So Albert Einstein, very respected physicist, but he couldn't solve that math problem. The question is, how was he able to solve the math problem? The answer is actually very interesting. So this guy is very consistently late in class every time. And on this particular day, everybody was in class on time on that particular day. He was told about the history of the math problem. Yeah. Do you know who Albert Einstein is? Do you know how many awards he won? So everybody was in class that day. He was told about the history of the math problem. He was told about what Einstein has achieved. He was told about how complex the problem is. But this guy, he doesn't look at the complexity of the problem. Why? Because he wasn't there. So what does he do? He goes into class. He doesn't see the famous math problem. He sees a normal mathematic problem. That's what he sees. A famous mathematical problem. He doesn't see it that way. He just sees a normal math problem. And guess what it does? He treats it as a normal math problem. So this is the secret. Who you give your time to is very important. I want to give you an advice. Don't be generous with your time, especially in the time of Facebook, in the time of WhatsApp. Don't be generous with your time. Be protective about your time. In the next, protective about your ears. Who hears and who speaks into your life are very important. Don't allow anybody just to contribute anything. Be protective. And this is the story with George Danzig solving famous math problem just in 3 days. Guess what? When the time for the dissertations came, the professor says, don't write a dissertation, just do a cover. This is going to be a dissertation. That's just to show you the contribution of one gentleman who approached a problem with no preconceived ideas, no preconceived notions about the history of a problem. This is the reason why I want to challenge you right now to begin to ignore the people who are discouraging you. Those external conversations. I want you to focus on quality conversations. I'm also going to encourage you to focus on investing in quality people. What Les Brown calls OQP, only quality people. those people, they determine the type of conversation. So I said two things. Number one, the type of conversations, what you're telling yourself, and number two, what other people are also telling you.